Welcome to the Squad Show. I'm Sam Ekstrom. What's working for the Vikings for the first 5 weeks? But more prominently, what's not been working?
Julia Daniels, Care 11 sports reporter. Finally, a bye, and still not a lot of answers about this Vikings team.
Reggie Wilson, Care 11 sports director. And might we be in for a little bit of a QB controversy?
Skol! It's the Viking Squad. Everything Minnesota Vikings every week. Breaking down all the big hits and game-changing plays from the land of 10,000 lakes. The way only the Locked On Podcast Network can. It's time to gear up. The Viking Squad Show starts now.
What's up and welcome in. It's our Care 11 spectacular Viking Squad Show on a Wednesday morning. You met Reggie and Julia from Care 11. No Ron Johnson today. I'm Sam Ekstrom, and we've got about 45 minutes of Vikings talk coming your way right now. We also do this Mondays, Thursdays, and after the game. We're streaming on Locked On Vikings. You can also find our audio in the Locked On Vikings podcast feed, where Luke Braun produces great daily Vikings content as well. What's working, what's not working for the Minnesota Vikings through 5 games? We'll take stock. We'll also discuss Kwesi moves, one that worked, one that maybe didn't work quite as well as we expected. We'll also talk, as Reggie said, QB controversy, what's going to happen in Week 7 against Philadelphia. Episode's brought to you by FanDuel today. New customers can bet $5. If your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. Vikings are back stateside after their long European road trip, bye week. So do the players now go on a separate vacation after they just got back from a work trip? Like, that seems a little exhausting. Turn around, go to Cancun. Does it not, Reggie? I mean,
I'd be at the crib.
Yeah.
I'd be at the crib.
Be chilling.
Recuperating. A lot of these guys have kids, so they didn't see their kids for a couple weeks. So, the moms are probably like, stay here.
You got to meet your son. Haven't seen your son yet.
Stay in this house, bond with your children. I need to take a nap. And that's speaking from, new dad understanding. So, yeah, I wouldn't go anywhere. Or maybe this would be a time if they didn't go on the trip. Maybe this will be a time for just a quick little family trip, or take a trip up north, or go to Duluth or something. I don't know.
The Vikings should take over Duluth. Go skip some rocks in Lake Superior. I mean, half the team's injured, Julia, so they've got to hang back in rehab, which probably throws a wrench into the plan. But the bye week could not have come at a better time. I think when you look at the schedule in May, you say, that bye seems a little early. We'd rather have it later in the season when people are more banged up. No, Vikings needed it right now.
And we talked about that too, how odd it was to have a bye so early, because we hadn't really experienced that before. But at the same time, it does make sense when you're coming off of an overseas 2-week trip. I think everybody that has ever gone across the pond, taken PTO to go across the pond, and then come back and had to work immediately can tell you it sucks. I remember when not to be one of those girls, but I did study abroad. And when I came back and within 24 hours, I was running 103 fever because I was just so exhausted. And it was just the coming back time change just threw me completely off. And I was fine going over there, but I know coming back, it's hard. It's hard to adjust back when you're going back in time. And so I think a lot of guys, are just taking this week to recuperate. Obviously, like you said, the injuries have been rampant and have only gotten worse. And so it really is kind of a miracle that they ended up with the bye where they did, because everybody needs a week off. And I don't think you're going to see a lot of guys that are actually traveling anywhere else. I think they're going to be staying at home, sitting around and doing their rehab and giving their bodies a rest, because I think all of them need it right now.
Yeah, no question. Even if, it's not like a go kind of trip or vacation, even if you're just a football team that's got a very regimented schedule, there is still a mental letdown when you get back from an overseas trip that long, that it's a multi-day recovery. They're probably still feeling a little fatigued waking up this morning. We're going to take stock of this team through the first 5 games, though. Almost a third of the way through the season. The Vikings sit at 3-2. Like, on its face, this is not a bad record. This is not a bad record. I think you probably want the Atlanta game back because that team through 5 games is far from convincing or dominant in any way. They lost to Carolina 30-0. Like, that's a game that you're going to want back. But you get Chicago on the road, you beat them there, you handle Cincinnati, which a lot of people had, put as an L before the season because they assumed Burrow. And then you beat the Browns barely. So you're 3-2. But it's been so topsy-turvy. It's been so injury-riddled that it's really hard, like you said in the open, Julia, to evaluate this team. So let's start on the positive note. What's been better than expected through 5? Julia, give me something.
I think we spent so much time during training camp talking about Hargrave and Jonathan Allen, and rightfully so, right? Because everyone else on the defense was doting on these guys, and while they've been helpful, they haven't been as impactful, I think, as we expected. However, when you think of Levi Drake Rodriguez, or you have Jalen Redmond, or you have Tyrion Ingram Dawkins, you have these younger guys on your defensive line that have been way more impactful than any of us expected. We were not highlighting these guys before the season started, and they have, here's what I will say. For those that don't know, Levi Drake Rodriguez is one of the nicest guys on planet Earth. When he came here last year as a rookie, he came up and introduced himself to every media member that was out there. Just, hey guys, I'm Levi, and he'll sit there and chat with you. But it's so satisfying to see a guy that's so nice and so sociable have the success that he's having so early on in his career. And I think it's just been, and Jalen Redmond has been phenomenal this year. And I think we were hoping that Jalen Redmond would be impactful, but we didn't know how much of an impact he would truly have. And I would argue he's been the most impactful on the defensive line so far this season. And so that's been something that I think was an unexpected surprise for all of us. And it's really, really cool to see these young guys. I mean, it's promising for Vikings fans to see these young guys stepping up the way that they have this season.
Yeah, crazy to think they also had Harrison Phillips in that group at one time. Just a wealth of youth and riches there at defensive tackle. Reggie, what do you got? What's been better?
All right, a little bit of low-hanging fruit. I'll get this out of the way. Justin Jefferson. It's been better than expected. He had the injury in training camp, came back, not really sure what his chemistry was going to be with JJ McCarthy. Now, he's taking passes from Carson Wentz, and he's still that dude. What did he say? Doesn't matter who's throwing that ball, 18 is going to make a play. And so that's been something. But I'll get off that. Julia and I really did talk a lot about what the secondary would look like in the first few games without Harry. They've been better than expected. If you think about it, just they haven't had any glaring things, maybe take away the DK Metcalf long touchdown, busted coverage that happened. But beyond that, like, it hasn't been the pass defense that's been an issue for the Vikings. It's been the run defense. And, Jonathan Grenard was like, look, it's been our kryptonite, but we don't like kryptonite. We got to get it fixed. We gotta find a way to figure this out and get guys on the ground. And so you think about that. I didn't expect the run defense to get gashed as much as it has. In that same respect, they haven't been giving up a ton of pass yards to opposing teams. That game against the Falcons, you won it back, but they were threatening. They didn't get in the end zone. Like, it was just a bunch of, bend but don't break, bend but don't break, bend but don't break. And you look at it and you're like, okay. You were wondering, like, might they have to call up Stephon Gilmore after a few games? He's still sitting on ice right now. They're making it work. They get rid of Mekhi Blackman. I saw he got an interception. with the Colts. You know, he's doing his thing. They're making it work with the guys that they have there. How long will it work? We're not sure, but for right now, I think that secondary unit has been better than expected.
Yeah, I'll piggyback off that, Reggie, because that was my original one. It's crazy to think how much they've trailed this season. In 4 of the 5 games, they've been behind like all game, playing from behind. And if you told me that, I would have expected, they must be getting gashed through the air. They must not be able to get stops on third down through the air. That's not the problem at all. Teams are getting the majority of their first downs on the ground against this defense. Pass defense, excellent. 5th in net yards per attempt, 3rd in yards against, 4th in touchdowns against through the air. And the defense as a whole, quite good. Like the rushing defense numbers are terrible, but the overall defense numbers are more correlated with the pass defense. Overall, 5th in points against, 6th in yards against, and that's kind of where we are in pass defense as well. Isaiah Rodgers has been unbelievably good, and not just against Cincinnati. He's been good all year. 2nd in coverage grade on Pro Football Focus. He's only allowed 11 receptions on 21 targets his way. Incredibly good. And that was a question mark. There were so many question marks on this defense, but that was one of them. 2-year contract to kind of a role player with Philadelphia, somebody that had been suspended and hadn't played a lot of meaningful reps as a starter. Phenomenal pickup by Kwesi. That could be part of our Kwesi segment. But I love what they've gotten from the secondary. Okuda hasn't been a huge liability. Byron Murphy's been solid. So I'm with you there, Reggie. And I would also say the backup quarterback position has been better than expected. A month ago, was it a month ago? Maybe a month and a half ago, we were talking about Sam Howell, and we were concerned. If J.J. McCarthy goes down, are the Vikings going to be able to win a game? Are they going to be able to not lose by 30 in a game with this guy as their backup QB? Carson Wentz comes in and goes 2-1. Can't ask for more than that. You really can't. You want your backup to be 500 or, in a perfect world, better than 500, and Carson Wentz has accomplished that. Maybe we'll see him after the bye as well. We'll get into that before the show's done. But let's talk a little negative. Reggie, you mentioned the run defense. You could go that direction or any other direction. What has not met expectations?
Yeah, that's the big one to me. You go 130 yards a game coming into that Browns game, and then they let up 140 to the Browns. And you're just like, goodness gracious, Quinshon Judkins is going to be a fine back in the league, but they were getting gashed. And I kind of don't understand it. You got some really like good pieces on that defense. And, Julia brought up Javon Hargrave and Jonathan Allen. Those guys are disruptors, and we really haven't seen that affect the run game yet. And it's not going well. And I think that's an easy answer. I don't want to steal either one of you all's answers, because I feel like there's another low-hanging fruit that we can definitely get into on the other side. But I will say the line and just the overall run defense in general is I just wasn't expecting it to get gashed. And you look at, all these games like, Bijan Robinson, he was a threat coming in. It's like they knew what he was going to be coming in, and he still got loose. The Bengals, they're having trouble in the run game in general, so it didn't go, terribly in that regard. But then, you get the Steelers. You got Kenneth Gainwell rushing for nearly 100 yards, and then again with the Browns and Quinshon Judkins. So they got some adjustments that they need to make over this bye to really shore up that run defense, because, man, with Philly coming, and you know what their MO is, and Saquon Barkley is the best in the game, and that's something that really puts you on high alert, especially considering their pass game isn't the greatest right now. You got, infighting going on with the Eagles pass game, and so their commitment is to running the football, and if that's going to be what they're going to come into the bank trying to do, Vikings got their work cut out for them.
Yeah, that was alarming to me, that against Dylan Gabriel, who you want to force to throw the ball, right? Like the defensive game plan needs to be kind of a sellout on Judkins to put Gabriel in tough spots, and they couldn't stop him. They couldn't do it. And I think Judkins is really, really good, but we didn't see these issues at all last year. Maybe we missed Jerry Tillery more than we thought. Julia, what do you got? What's been worse than we thought?
I mean, it's pretty obvious. JJ McCarthy's health has been worse than we thought. It has. Yeah. This is a guy that they have hyped for now 2 seasons, and we have hardly seen him at all. And low-hanging fruit or not, it's something that you have to talk about. It's one of the biggest disappointments of the year. You know, win, lose, or draw, you just haven't seen him out there. And I think Vikings fans have been desperate for this. This is their quarterback. This is their franchise guy. This is the quarterback of the future. And we just have yet to see him. And now you have Carson Wentz have this huge game-winning drive, and you've seen him have some success. And it's like, do you go back to JJ McCarthy after the bye? That's kind of where you're at right now. And so I think I was actually reading some article recently, either last night or this morning, and it was talking about like the NFC North as a whole, and like one of the biggest highlights was Jared Goff, and one of the biggest disappointments was JJ McCarthy, not because necessarily what he's done on the field, but just the fact that we haven't seen him. And I think that that's disappointing, and I think that that is something that Vikings fans are sad about. I mean, this is a guy, you know, we spent how many months? You know, we spent basically a whole year expecting his return, only to have him play that a little sliver of time. And then now you're hoping maybe he comes back. But at the same time, you know, he's supposed to return to practice, but we don't know anything about what the future holds for JJ McCarthy and how much we're going to see him this year.
Yeah, it's a huge storyline, and probably the biggest storyline of this season, that thus far through 5 games and maybe beyond, you really haven't gotten the answers you need, and the few answers you do have not been positive. There's not a green light here with this quarterback. You're still trying to make excuses, I think, for him, saying, okay, first game of the year, great comeback, struggled early on. He had the jitters, you know, hometown team and all that, outdoors, Monday night, had the jitters. We'll give him a pass. Week 2, well, he just had a baby. Didn't have Christian Darrisaw. Okay, couple more valid things. But also, you can't excuse your quarterback forever. You know, at some point, the quarterback's got to elevate the people around him, and he's young. And the Vikings want to win now. And there are these contrasting ideals that have to be considered. And we'll talk more at length about Wentz versus McCarthy as the show goes on. We'll pause right now and come back with some more individual moves that Kwesi made that we either like or don't like as much after 5 games. That's next. Brought to you by FanDuel today. I'm checking out the latest Super Bowl odds. Let's see where the Vikings are. Well, they're not in the top 3. They're not in the top 5. They're not in the top 10. They're not in the top 15. They're like 20th, plus 5,500 to win the Super Bowl, 55-1. If you think there is a possible Super Bowl run in these Vikings, you could bet like $2 to win 110. That's pretty good value. You can bet that. You can live wager. You can same game parlay, all available at FanDuel. And if you're a new customer, you can bet $5 and get $300 in bonus bets if you win that first $5 bet. Find a good money line. NHL is starting up. Find a lopsided matchup. Win that 5, get 300, and then you can make that last the rest of the NFL season if you want. Have a little extra fun on Sunday afternoon. So whether you're a casual fan or you like deep diving into the stats, FanDuel makes the game day experience great. Very easy to use. So what are you waiting for? FanDuel.com or the FanDuel Sportsbook app and get started. All right, Squad Show rolls on. Reggie Wilson, Julia Daniels, Carol Evan, and I'm Sam Ekstrom. Let's talk moves. What is an off-season move that's looking great right now and one that's not looking so great? Let's start on the negative this time. We started positive on the last one. I'll start, and I'll rip the Band-Aid so that you guys don't have to. I'll own this one. It's Adam Thielen. The Adam Thielen trade is not looking great. In particular because we thought that Jalen Naylor was going to be out for a while. We thought there was a hand injury. We thought that Thielen was going to be your wide receiver too. Naylor was healthy. Naylor's been good, so Thielen hasn't necessarily been needed as much. But when he's been on the field, he's not been able to separate, not been able to hang on to the ball. He's not been effective. I think his biggest benefit right now is probably being like a leader on the bench, kind of a steady veteran presence. He's probably trying to stay appreciative that he's here, but at the same time, wishing that he could channel the 2017 version of himself. It's been a tough move, been a tough look for Adam Thielen so far. Not the best move that Kwesi made this offseason, and he's made some good ones. But Reggie, what else hasn't maybe worked out the way the Vikings hoped, move-wise?
Love it. Love this guy. But I think just because of what's the situation right now, bringing back Aaron Jones, he's been injured, and you're like, man, you were hoping to see this nice two-man punch between him and Jordan Mason, and he gets hurt and he's not out there. And now we're kind of seeing the two-man punch of Mason and Xavier Scott, and they're doing well. Mason has been running well. He looks like RB1. And so I think it's kind of tough. I'm interested to see what KO does when Aaron Jones does come back. But I think it was a no-brainer. He had a great year last year, and so you bring him back. But then they wanted to kind of give some insurance there as well, and they brought Jordan Mason in, and it's looked good. But for so far, you hate to do it because a person is injured, just like Julia said with JJ McCarthy, but he hasn't been out there, and it's not the greatest look so far. But honestly, I feel like it's still so early. Like, Adam Thielen probably was the easiest answer there, but as the season plays out, maybe it'll probably look better from the Jones perspective. Just hopefully they can get some of these injuries corralled.
Yeah. Hamstring for Jones, correct?
Mm-hmm.
The hamstrings are tough, man. Juergens has one. Jones has one. Cashman has one. Those are the ones that you worry about. Jordan Mason, by the way, on pace for almost 1,100 yards. Not too bad. I did the math. I did a ratio. I set it up, the ratio as I learned how to do in high school. Julia, what move are you not thrilled with?
I think I'm going to go injuries as well, but I think Ryan Kelly it sucks to see the position that he's in. 2 concussions in 3 weeks. People are calling for him to retire because they're worried about his brain. And I think that it's just disappointing. It's obviously hard to when you have this quarterback carousel that's going around and you don't know who's going to be your center. And that's always tough. And I know Carson Wentz obviously knows how to adjust on the fly, but it is something that it's an added layer of something that you have to prepare for when you don't know who's going to be snapping the ball. But we do know he's going on IR, which sucks. I think obviously they would rather have their first rounder out there. This guy's an incredible offensive lineman. He's an incredible center. And just to see him have the injuries that he's had in his career, but then especially this season, I think it sucks. I don't really blame Kwesi because there's no way you can predict that this is going to happen. But I just hate to see the concussions that he's had. It's scary. I think it's a little bit alarming. And it's disappointing. So, yeah, I go Ryan Kelly.
Let's address Daniel Sharp's comment. Daniel Sharp is very upset that Kevin O'Connell's team doesn't have an identity. Kevin O'Connell admitted this. Kevin O'Connell had a real transparent moment on the podium saying that we don't know our identity and we got to find it. And he attributes a lot of that to injuries, and I think that's valid. What should the identity be for this team? I've been asking this all week, and I don't know if I know what the correct answer is. Past teams, the 2022 team, they were just grinders in the fourth quarter, play from behind, and they would beat you at the end. And it was kind of an unstable identity. It was a little bit tough to count on that going forward. Last year's team, offensively balanced, offensively dominant. Early in games, they would take a lead, and then the defense would just slow you down enough. Right, the defense they would maybe let you get close. They would put the clamps on, stop you in the red zone, get a big stop at the end of games, and they would beat you that way. I'm not I think they wanted this team to be like a really physical group that would punish you on defense. They would punish you in the trenches. They haven't done that in the run game, and they've been too injured on offense to do that in the offensive run game. I don't think they've been able to tap into that identity at all. So is this more of like a run the ball, play defense kind of identity? Is it going to end up being more of a passing attack identity with Wentz? Or like Reggie, what is the identity supposed to be here when they come back out of the bye, maybe healthier?
I mean, if you think about it, and Julia and I talked about this as well, you know, when you have a young quarterback like JJ McCarthy, the identity, especially with how you spent money and the moves that you made, yeah, you want to run the football and play good defense. They spent quite a bit of money on those offensive and defensive lines to bulk up those sides after Kevin O'Connell made that comment that they needed to fortify the interior of the offensive and defensive lines after that loss to the Rams. And so I think you think about that, you try to bring a young quarterback along. You know, I think sometimes Kevin O'Connell can't help himself because he is a very pass first, you know, guy. He's a quarterback. He wants to put the ball in the quarterback's hands and let him make plays. But what you did, as I mentioned, you bring back Aaron Jones, you bring in Jordan Mason, you develop a guy like Xavier Scott in the preseason and keep him around. You have the you bring in Ryan Kelly, Will Fries, you bring in, you know, Darisaw coming back seemingly early from the catastrophic injury that he had last season. You got Brian O'Neill on the other side, and you're like, oh, this line should be a thing. Like, they should be just road grading out there, but you haven't necessarily seen that just yet. They have opened up some great running lanes for Jordan Mason. It's looked good in that regard. But I think that is what you would think the identity would be. But then when you got games with Carson Wentz throwing 300 yards, you're just like, oh, okay, you know. I think it was always kind of tough to think about that with all the weapons that they have on the outside with Jefferson and Addison and Hockenson and Speedy. Then you add Thielen to the mix, that they will be a run-first team. But I think for the development of a young quarterback who you hoped would have been out there and not injured, I think that's what you thought the identity would be until that young quarterback got up to speed and was able to start slinging it around.
Yeah. I thought we saw the identity for one quarter. I thought the fourth quarter against Chicago ran it great in that quarter. They wore down the Bears. McCarthy supplemented by making some great throws of his own, and the defense locked down for that one quarter. They were punishing, they were physical, they were dominant. That was the peak of the season. That was the peak of the Minnesota Vikings vision. And unfortunately, it wasn't able to continue because of the injuries. Julia, anything to add there just on identity crisis the Vikings face?
I think, yes, this is the NFL, but I think it's a little unfair to blame Kevin O'Connell for not having an identity for this team before, because it's been an insane time for injuries. And I think he's been dealt a lot of cards that were unexpected. You can't predict that you're going to have as many injuries as this team has had, especially because since I've been covering the Vikings, they haven't had this many injuries this early in the season before. And so I think that it's unfair to sit there and act like it's his fault that they don't have any identity. You have to, you don't just become something because you say it. You have to figure it out, and you figure it out by playing these games. And they haven't had a game where they have a consistent group of guys that are out there. They're constantly having to change things around and work around their depth. And honestly, I think Kevin O'Connell's done a pretty good job of covering up their weaknesses that they've had because of these injuries. And so I think it's something that's going to take time. And so I don't really put the blame on him for not having figured out the identity of this team yet. Like I said before, we sit there and we watch. It's our job to sit there, watch, and analyze these teams, and we don't even know what they look like. So I can't imagine being a part of it and trying to figure it out yourselves, you know? And so that's kind of my 2 cents on the whole thing. I think it's just going to take a little bit of time, and it's going to take some guys coming back and hopefully other guys not getting injured.
Yeah, and you got to give him credit too. Getting results, 3-2, staying afloat, right? Keeping the team afloat during this this trying time. We're going to have a pop-in from Ron Johnson. He'll join us right after this. We'll also put him on the spot about Wentz versus McCarthy. That's next.
I'm Cody Rourke from Locked On Broncos, and this episode is brought to you by Peloton. Peloton is shaping the future of fitness with the brand new Peloton Cross-Training Tread Plus, powered by Peloton IQ. This is Peloton's most advanced equipment yet, giving you real-time guidance and endless ways to move, whether you're running, lifting, or you're cross-training with your favorite instructors like Alex Toussaint. It's training reimagined to make your workout more personal. Peloton is built for breakthroughs. With features that help you plan, stay motivated, and hit peak performance, you can let yourself run, lift, flex, and go while Peloton handles all the rest. Plus, Peloton IQ provides real-time strength coaching, tracking your progress and suggesting weights that challenge you so you can get stronger. Plus, the new movement tracking camera, it counts your reps and corrects your form in real time, making sure every rep is safer and smarter. So, let yourself run, lift, flex, push, and go. Explore the new Peloton Cross-Training Tread Plus at onepeloton.com.
Welcome back to the Squad Show. Ron Johnson joining now. He's at 3 Ron Johnson, host of the Ron Johnson Show. Ron, welcome. Glad you could make it for a little bit this morning. We got to talk Wentz versus McCarthy and get your opinion on that. You've obviously weighed in on the Ron Johnson Show as well. But, if all things are equal going into week 7, if the ankle's good for McCarthy, if the shoulder's good for Wentz, is this still J.J. McCarthy's job?
Well, I think it is J.J. McCarthy's job, honestly, because that's what they drafted him for. Carson Wentz has looked good, but there are deficiencies with his ability to run when he's pressed out the pocket. He sits in the pocket sometimes too long because he doesn't want to run anymore. And honestly, if you draft a guy that high, you make all that for him. If you were to go with Carson Wentz the rest of the season, what does that do for his future? Are people questioning? Now, again, if he's not 100% healthy, you do have Carson Wentz that can get it done. And is it worth it to put him out there before he's ready to go? I mean, look at RG3 when he first hurt his knee, and then he came back too soon and got re-hurt again and never was the same. I think they're having that same feeling about J.J. McCarthy. Is he going to be fully ready to go with that ankle? If it is a true high ankle sprain, they never heal, to be honest. It's more so of how much pain can you tolerate, because you can't do anything worse to it until you just let it rest and sit down in the offseason. So it's going to come down to that. The other question is offensive line. People are like, oh, if the offensive line is not fully healthy, do you put J.J. McCarthy out there? The answer is yes, you have to. And so if I'm going to look at this next week, because J.J. McCarthy is like the playoffs. You want him ready for the playoffs. Carson Wentz is more with a stopgap. He got you to 3-2. I think, honestly, they should have beat the Steelers, should be 4-1, but that doesn't all land on his shoulders. The defense couldn't really stop the run. And so when you're looking at this team right now, it is J.J. McCarthy's team, whether people think it is or not. He was drafted that high, and that's the reason why you do that.
Yeah. Julia, there's been a lot of speculation, kind of unfounded speculation, that the Vikings are kind of soft benching J.J. McCarthy. They wanted to give him more time to observe and learn and watch Carson Wentz, and they'll play him when they feel like he's ready. I'm not sure I buy into that. I think there's a legitimate ankle injury here, and I think he's legitimately going to have a good chance to play against the Eagles. But do you think there's still a high upside this season with J.J. McCarthy that could play at a higher level than what we've seen from Carson Wentz?
Yeah, I think what we've always talked about with J.J. McCarthy is that the main thing that he needs is experience, and he just constantly doesn't get the experience. And so it's hard to know what his ceiling really is, because how much time has he really had to get real-time experience and learn from his mistakes? Not very much, not at all. And so I think that J.J. McCarthy has the talent. He has all the tools that he needs to be successful. It's just figuring it out. And it's something that, like we've always talked about, you just kind of have to give him a little grace and a little space to figure it out. Now, that's also to say Carson Wentz has years of experience on J.J. McCarthy. So when it comes to decision-making on the field and things like that, it's going to look different, but it's something that he also had to learn at one point in time too. And so I think, like Ron said, you draft a guy that high, you're making an investment in him. You have to invest in him as, more so in the experience side and getting him out there on the field. Otherwise, what's the point? What was the point of drafting him to begin with? And so, yeah, I think that he has the potential to be a great quarterback, but I think it's just going to take time at the end of the day.
Yeah. Reg, where do you stand on it?
So here's the thing. All the people talking about soft benching and all that stuff, like, I think that's nonsensical, because they wouldn't have given him the keys to the car in the first place if they felt like they were going to be that short of a leash. I will say, though, one of my mentors, his name is Anthony Calhoun. He works at Wish TV in Indianapolis, and he saw the Anthony Richardson thing play out. And he was just like, hey, man, I don't think Carson's giving that job back. But I think it's from the perspective of what he saw in Indianapolis and what he saw play out this preseason as well, with Daniel Jones taking the job. And I'm like, look, it's a different circumstance. They allowed Anthony Richardson to actually play. Yes, he did get hurt a lot, but then in the games that he did play, he wasn't there. Now, look, I've been an Anthony Richardson apologist, so I felt like he just needed more time. And those who are J.J. McCarthy apologists would say the same thing. That being said, he needs to be healthy enough. I do hear what Ron said about the ankle. He does have to be healthy enough to be out there and to consistently get those reps, because, again, as Bruce Arians said, he's not getting better holding a clipboard on the sideline.
Mm-hmm.
And so, but I do think what was interesting was what Kevin O'Connell said on Monday when they got back, saying that they're going to ramp him up. He's going to get extensive work in the bye, headed into next week's practice. But he also said that this time to sit and watch Carson do it for the last few games has been invaluable to McCarthy. Seeing him get the ball out of his hands quick, be decisive in his reads, and not just bail after the first read. I thought that was pretty telling of O'Connell to say those things about where McCarthy is right now. He's just like, I'm trying to get McCarthy back fundamentally wise where he was in the spring and the summer when things were clicking and going well. I think he's still coaching JJ with his feet and his eyes, getting through his progressions, making quick decisions, because that was one thing that Julia and I noticed when we were watching at camp earlier this summer, is he was holding the ball a little bit too long. And we saw a little bit of that happen against the Falcons as well. And in those first 3 quarters against Chicago, we saw some of those bad habits. I think there are still bad habits that McCarthy has that O'Connell and the coaching staff is still trying to coach out of him, but he's not going to get better if he's not playing. Carson Wentz is who he is. I think he's going to be a guy that's going to come in there, get a game plan, and help you be able to win a game. But he's not the future. You drafted JJ to be the future, so you have to put him out there if he's healthy enough to play and see what he has. And I understand Ron's point too. Like, yeah, if the offensive line is still in shambles, you still got to play him, because he's got to go out there and understand how to play in adversity and how to get around that as a young quarterback. He has to play in order to see what he has. But I do think it's very interesting that Kevin O'Connell mentioned that his play does have to be better when he is out there.
Yeah. Ron, I know you got a tight window here, but I wanted to ask you this. J.J. McCarthy's now gotten hurt twice in 3 games of playing, last year preseason and 2 games this year. He's gotten hurt scrambling, right? And this is part of his game, is being mobile, getting out of the pocket. If you're Kevin O'Connell, do you need to advise J.J. McCarthy to be less aggressive, to slide faster, to not be as assertive when he's trying to use his legs?
No, it's like telling the tiger not to eat the meat when we throw it in the cage. Like, you have to be who you are. Tiger can't change his stripes. J.J. McCarthy can't change his game. And I've heard coaches say this a bunch. If you play to not get hurt, you're going to get hurt. And J.J. McCarthy just has to be who it is. Injuries are going to happen. Life happens. The ankle thing was just some people say was that a hip drop. No, it wasn't really a hip drop. I mean, he definitely dropped his weight, but it was what it was. He wasn't hanging on to his hips and then just flew his body to the ground like the true hip drop. It's just one of those things. But also for JJ McCarthy, sometimes get out of bounds. Like, I think that's the key. Like, he was still running, trying to get that extra Patrick Mahomes yard, and you're not Patrick Mahomes. They don't respect you. They don't care about you. They're going to hit you every chance they get. Whereas Mahomes, a lot of defenders know, like, if he's running towards the sideline, let me just make sure he goes out of bounds, because if I touch him, these refs are going to throw a flag. JJ McCarthy hasn't earned that yet. So if I'm Kevin O'Connell, I'm just telling him, like, look, I need you to run, but get down. Like, don't do what Carson Wentz did and go head first trying to get us a first down when you got 5 yards. So you're not running over anybody. You're not Jay Cutler. Just get down. And same thing, when you're going out of bounds, just go out of bounds. Like, you're not, that extra yard could be the difference in you being healthy and you having another guy roll up in your ankle. So, no, you don't change who a quarterback is. I mean, that's why you drafted him, is for his ability to be mobile. Because think about all the times we talked about, Kirk Cousins as he got older, how he couldn't move out the pocket as fast. And then Josh Dobbs came in. Everybody's like, man, if we could find a quarterback that could throw and run like Josh Dobbs. And I'm not saying JJ McCarthy is Josh Dobbs, but he definitely is mobile.
Mm-hmm. Out of curiosity, Ron, you got a sweet golf course behind you. What's the what golf course you got?
We're at Mystic Lake Casino and Hotel. So one of the sponsors of the Vikings. There's Launchpad over there, but yeah, it's a little conference over here. And it's a great little shot.
It's beautiful. I love that course. Played there at the Vikings media tournament back pre-COVID when they still did that, and COVID happened, and then they didn't do it anymore. So,
all right, well, you guys have a great day.
Yeah, thanks, Ron. Good stuff. Ron Johnson, little pop in. We'll move on with an NFC North overview. Where are the Vikings at? You got the Packers, you got the Lions, you got the Bears playing a little better. Competitive division. Where do the Vikings stand in the hierarchy? That's where we'll finish the show next. All right. Lions 4-1, tied for the best record in football, and they've put up like record number of points. Their demise, maybe a little overrated. Packers crushed them in week 1. Packers then lost to the Browns. They tied the Cowboys. They're 2-1. Vikings are 3-2. Bears on a 2-game winning streak. They're 2-2. Does it kind of feel like the standings reflect the power rankings? Lions, Packers, Vikings, Bears. Julia, what would you say?
I would say the Packers are probably the best team in the NFC North right now. What did you say the Lions record is? Are they 3-2?
No, they're 4-1. They've kind of pounded teams. Yeah, they beat and the schedule, not the toughest. The Ravens have been giving up 1 million points to everybody. The Bengals, the Browns, and I can't remember the fourth team they beat, but it hasn't really been a gauntlet for them. So I will say that.
I think the Lions are also in the same spot of trying to figure out what their identity is too. But I would say in order, I would go Packers, Lions, Vikings, Bears. Just right now. I think the Packers look incredible besides that loss to the Browns. That was a little odd. I think all of us were like, what's happening here? But I do think that they're the best looking team in the North right now. I think the Lions still have the firepower that they had from the past few years, but they obviously had all the switch arounds with coaching and things like that. So I think that takes some time to adjust to. And then, Vikings, we've been talking about them the whole show, so we know where they're at. And then the Bears are just a hot mess as usual. And I think Ben Johnson is aging very quickly in Chicago right now.
Yeah, we need the before and after of his head of hair before the season and then after the season, and watch it go gray and in real time. Yeah, I'm kind of leaning Lions as the top dog in this division. Ooh. I think that that offense has not slowed without Ben Johnson. There is a lot to like about what they're doing offensively. Jahmyr Gibbs is a powerhouse. Amon-Ra is a powerhouse. Jared Goff is just steady and turned into a top 10 quarterback in the league, I think. I think they are still, Reggie, the mark to beat. And the most concerning thing, there's one game separating 3 teams. They're all right there. But it feels like the gap in talent between the Lions and the Vikings right now, in my opinion, is pretty substantial, more than one game's worth.
I don't know. I don't know that I agree with that.
Okay.
I don't know that I agree with
Okay.
that. I think when it comes to like top tier talent, maybe the Lions have the edge just as in terms of like all the first round picks that they've hit on that now occupy their roster and actually like really play well for them. And so I think maybe that gives them a little bit of an edge. But I give the Lions the top spot. The one thing that concerns me about the Lions though is that defense. And that first week they got exposed against the Packers, but then they beat the Bears. If you're scoring more points than the other team, I guess it doesn't matter. But you look at the Bears game, 52-21, Ravens 38-30, Browns 34-10. Browns trying to figure out what they were doing at quarterback. And then Jake Browning and the Bengals, they still put up 24 points. Came, maybe you say it's in garbage time. They came up the rear, whatever you want to say, but 37-24 win over the Bengals. And so I'm interested to see when they play the Chiefs next, how that looks and what that looks like. I guess it's still just kind of weird, but until they've been unseated, you still kind of have to give the Lions the top billing. What's interesting though is I think I had like an early like Super Bowl pick of the Packers going, and I don't know. Julia and I, we were in the office together when they had the tie with the Cowboys, and it's just like I don't know. Like you think like, okay, you add Michael Parsons and this thing is just going to be dominant. But I think I want to see them against some more competition in the division before I just give them, that second spot with the Lions. I think they're neck and neck with the Vikings. 2-3 could go either way. And I think the Bears are starting to figure some things out. If that means playoffs, I'm not sure. But I think they might get to 9 or so wins this year.
I think the Bears are plucky. I think the Packers have a really high-end offensive operation that can ebb and flow. Jordan Love has shown this throughout his career, that he's going to show it to you a few times where he's going to have stretches of greatness. He might have a great month at a time. And then there are going to be the clunkers, like against Cleveland. So you got to judge him based on what's his batting average. Like, is he 50% greatness, 50% kind of middle of the road, or is it a greater ratio than that? That's what's going to decide the Green Bay Packers. Whereas I see more of a consistency from the Detroit Lions. That's why I have them number 1 in the division. And I think the Vikings are 3 to me. I think the Vikings need to prove a lot more in the way of health, in the way of consistency. A lot of mistakes, self-inflicted penalties, fumbles. Like it's been a sloppy start to the season for the Vikings. It's not all injuries. Like it's some of their established guys making these errors as well. Lot to work through as we come out of the bye with Eagles, Chargers, Ravens, Lions. That's going to be a real telling stretch. And they don't even play the Packers until like late November. So that's going to get super interesting, super fast. Catch Reggie and Julia on Care 11 and Care 11 Sports Plus. Make sure you check that out. Find Ron Johnson on The Ron Johnson Show. Find us here in The Squad Show Mondays, Thursdays, this crew on Wednesdays, and after the games. We're everywhere covering the Minnesota Vikings. We appreciate you watching, listening, commenting, and subscribing today, and we will talk to you next time on The Squad Show. Peace.